Across the board, pretty good sales for February. Walk us through it.
Definitely, like from discount sector, we saw like Costco and Target. Target came out with a 7% number. It was already beating analyst expectations. And then from to the high end, Saks, Nordstrom, Macy's, all pretty strong numbers. And also teen retailers, we have like Buckle and Zumiez. About 15% like of sales gain, 15 and 14% each.
So across the retailers themselves, now what about in the categories of the types of apparel they were selling? Strong across the board there?
Well, it seems like, the demand was definitely like, we have like this trend. Consumers now are very, very into accessories. We have like we've seen strong handbag sales as well as like, like shoes and things like that. And also men's apparel seems to be like a lot of retailers cited like strong men's apparel sales. And at Target, we know like, the company in February introduced a Jason Wu collection, so that definitely helped their demand as well.
Interesting, because when you see accessories starting to sell well again, that's often incremental sales. It's not people buying the basics of things they have to have. When you start buying more accessories, it's almost a signal that things are getting a little bit better. Let's talk about some of the catalysts in February. Crazy warm weather we've had.
Yeah, so definitely we know like throughout this winter, since December and January, warm weather hurt retailers that when they were trying to sell coats and other winter merchandise, that definitely hurt their sales.
Right.
So what happened was like, in February, retailers started to bring in a lot of their spring merchandise, and consumers, they basically had some of the money left because they didn't buy some of the coats and other winter merchandise. So now like retailers, they have been doing a good job of introducing like fresh products. Like this year we saw even like a Gap today, like their number did very, like they came out like everybody was like, most of the people were expecting they were to decline.
You're talking about the Gap, right?
Yes. And then they actually came out with a 4% gain. And we saw in their stores, there's a lot of like bright colors, gaming denim. So it's definitely retailers are trying to do what they can to kind of like give consumers a reason to buy.
Do we have to worry about their quarterly numbers though, if with this excess inventory, this winter inventory, they perhaps couldn't move? Do you think there's something we're going to have to worry about there?
Well, some of the winter merchandise, we saw that the negative effect mostly was factored in like in their fourth quarter numbers. So, but with the February, even though the February number was very strong, there's definitely some of the grain of the saw, like we have to like take in, for instance, gas price. We know like I just check on the AAA number, the last month up 30 cents.
And they're saying we could hit $5 a gallon over the summer, or at least 50 cents more a gallon than we're currently at. And that doesn't just affect us as consumers thinking about where we're going to spend, but it affects the retailers too, because it all trickles down from the delivery of clothing and items, and at some point somebody's got to pay for that extra cost, and it ends up being the consumer. So prices could go higher on some of these items, I would assume.
Price, actually, retailers this year, they're getting the benefit of the cotton costs like deflation, so that's expected to be a tailwind for them. But on gas price, I just want to kind of bring in like a fact, like I just talked to the analyst, very interesting fact about, so 1 dime increase in gas price basically would take out about as much as $1.4 billion of consumer spending.
1 dime takes out, what's that number again?
1.4 billion.
Billion with a B.
Yeah, this is according to Craig Johnson of Custom Growth Partners. So this is like a pretty, significant impact. And also, like with the retail number, what happens is that, today's number reflects like about 18 retailers. So we have like JCPenney, basically right now they are trying to kind of like turn around their business with this like new pricing strategy. They stopped reporting number, and the company has said, our number, February sales were actually disappointing. So you also have to kind of factor that in, like even though today's number is very encouraging, it doesn't really represent the full picture.
And very quickly before we let you go, Andrea, what about the profit margins? I mean, we talked a lot about price cutting around the holidays, the discounting you and I did here on the show. What was happening in February with that?
I'm glad you brought that up. So for instance, Limited, Victoria's Secret parent, they had another great sales like month with like Valentine's Day boosting their sales. But the company did say that we saw their stock price a little bit lower today. The merchandise margin was hurt because they had to increase promotions, and also they had to contend with a little bit of the higher costs still in the month.